Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for everyone who decided to come and attend the CD committee Monday, February 6th. Madam Clerk, you can call the roll.
Calling the roll, Mr. Hairston.
Here.
Mr. Brady. Mr. Brady is absent. Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones is absent. Ms. Simon. Ms. Simon is absent. Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
We do not have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We do expect Mr. Miller to be in attendance this morning. We will not approve the minutes. We'll wait till our next committee meeting to approve the minutes once we have quorum. No matters referred to the committee. We do have 3 presentations this morning. We will begin with the county demolition program update. Ken Surratt, Mr. Miller's here. Then from there, we'll discuss the tax lien certificate sale update. And we'll end with the Cuyahoga County Housing Trends presentation from Mr. Frank Ford and his group. All presentations will be available online for folks to access and view as we proceed through today's committee and afterwards. So if there's anyone who would like a copy of the presentation, I'm sure they can see the clerk for those. Mr. Surratt.
Good morning, Ken Surratt, Department of Development. Here to share an update on our county demolition program. Is this going through? There we go. Just a quick agenda. Just always like to start off with the summary of the program, just for anyone who's in the audience. Just to give a brief overview, as well as some of the program administration. Then I'll go into kind of where we are with some actual numbers and even a pretty little map. So the program, as you recall, it's $50 million. And is really designed to remove the blight from our communities and ideally to spur new development, which will really revitalize communities. Of that $50 million, up to $3 million per year for 3 years, so a total of $9 million is kind of set aside as funding to the county land bank. Another kind of nuance, just to make clear, the properties that are eligible for demolition have to be vacant, abandoned, and nuisance or blighted. The cities go through their own nuisance abatement ordinances and processes to then gain the legal control in order to tear these down. There's no more than $100,000 per structure. In anyone's first award, they can get up to $1 million, and every subsequent award can be up to $2 million. And again, the cities are the ones who choose these properties to be demolished through an application process to the Department of Development. Just a little bit about program administration. We didn't want to trade one problem for another, so there's definitely some rules and regulations around trying to mitigate any kind of environmental concerns. We really took a lot of time before this process, before this program started to do that. We don't want to trade, blighted houses for, these huge landfills. Also, just a quick overview of our internal procedures. I think the most important thing is that payment is issued on a reimbursement basis. So, we do make sure that people follow their nuisance abatement procedures. We're notified of upcoming demolitions. We actually have inspectors in the Department of Development who go out on periodic basis. Actually, we've hit almost the majority of the demolitions to make sure that they are following our procedures and the conditions are safe for residents. So I think there's some really good controls that have been put in place for this program. I'll pause for a second to see if there's any questions before I move on. No?
Mr. Miller.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Surratt, of the $50 million, how much has been spent so far?
I think that's the next slide. There we go. So to the councilman through the chair, to date, as of Friday, we have awarded, and that is not necessarily spent, but these are applications that have been approved, $26.5 million, leaving about 23.5 to go. And I believe there's a handout provided to you all, and you can see how that spreads by community. Just a quick overview. Cleveland to date has been awarded just under $7 million. East Cleveland, $3 million. Shaker Heights is the next highest, 1.8 million dollars. And then it shows the land bank with 2 awards, so 6 million of the 9.
Which was going to be a question of mine, whether the 26.5 included, how many payments to the land bank did that include? Did that include 1 or 2 payments? Well, I see it only included the 1 payment of $3 million.
6 million. So there's two awards. There.
Okay,
so
2 awards.
$3
okay.
million.
So it is
each
there.
Year. It is there.
My
the
apologies.
second.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
Mr. Surratt, has the remaining 23.5 million been encumbered and budgeted, and how is that distributed by year?
To the councilman through the chair, the remaining funds have all been budgeted. Except for $8 million, if you recall, in the last budgeting biannual budget, there was $8 million that was going to be included in the 2018 budget, just to make sure that we had a balanced biannual budget. So that $8 million you will see come through in the 2018 budget. So $42 million has been budgeted.
So, Mr. Chairman, Director, you don't think we're going to get to 42 million this year? So that holding that 8 million didn't cause any problem. Is that correct?
To the councilman, to the chair, I don't believe so. Again, I think this for a couple reasons. One, the funding really moves at the pace in which we get the applications and get awards. Cleveland, can move pretty quickly, but outside of that, they're smaller awards. And with that $2 million cap, it definitely means they have to come back multiple times throughout the year. But then also the fact that we pay retroactively after they've expended the dollars, so that the dollars, not having that $8 million did not slow anything down this year, no.
Okay, and Mr. Chairman, Director, do we expect to get applications that will enable us to expend the entire 50 million, and if yes, by when do you think that will occur?
That's a great question, Councilman. I wish I had the magic ball to know exactly. I will say our friends over at the City of Cleveland could say that they could use all of the money, and if available, they would probably want it all. I think the other, what else is in the pipeline? I just received word from Parma, Middleburg Heights, and I know Shaker has some commercial buildings they also want to take down, which will probably be another few $100,000. But I expect Cleveland to come this year with at least 3 more applications, if not 4. So I don't even think through this year we'll get through the 42. And we'll have plenty to go into next year.
So we might get into the mid-30s this year, but that would be about it. Be a fair statement.
I think that's fair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Proceed.
Okay. So here's a little map. I can send this to you. It comes out small on the screen, but it just I think a pictorial view of kind of where things are happening. As you can see, the majority are in the city of Cleveland, kind of on the northeast side as well as the southeast side of Cleveland. But there really is a spread throughout the inner rings as well, with a mix of both residential and commercial buildings. But I just wanted to kind of show you graphically where the demand is for demolitions.
Thank you. Yeah, I was looking. I said, I can't see this here.
Well, I can send that to you in a bigger format, blow it up for you.
We appreciate it. Just
Sure.
We can see some of the blue and the red dots. But if you can send that to us, that way we can really get a better picture of where the demo is happening now.
Right.
Oh, you can see that. Okay, the screen here isn't working. Okay, so I guess we can see it a little bit better here.
Yeah,
on the
like I
screen.
said, the clustering is mostly kind of in the northeastern part of Cleveland, southeastern part of Cleveland, as well as some of the southeastern suburbs.
Okay. Thank you. Any more questions from our committee? Mr. Gallagher.
Do we have any idea what, if any, funds these communities are using to take care of their problems?
To the councilman, I just want to clarify the question. You're talking about
Is anybody putting any of their own money
all
in?
money?
And can we get those numbers?
Yeah, so I can definitely get that. So again, the commercial buildings is where you'll see people putting in their own money
Well,
because of that
they have an
100,000.
upside to that.
Right.
The intent of this was to get rid of really the houses.
Correct. So that's where you'll see those in the commercial is where the people are putting in their own money, anything over the $100,000. But I can get those numbers, for you. And then, depending on the community, how, how they're maintaining the property, I mean, that's something that they have to figure out as well once the house comes down.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. Any more questions, Mr. Miller?
No, thank you very much.
The last slide I had is I just wanted to show, and this is through all of our invoiced demos. So there are 934 that have been completed, 870 we've gotten invoices for. I just wanted to give you a little bit of a picture of the cost per demo, because I know in some communities that's definitely been an issue. As you can see with the residentials, we're under $11,000 per demo, and commercial, just under 34,000. So giving an overall average of just under 13, which I think is pretty reasonable given our standards. And again, these costs include any environmental clean out as well as the demolition. So all in, if we're talking about a house under $11,000. I think that's just definitely reasonable given what we've seen around the country.
Well, thank you, Mr. Surratt. Definitely, you've given us a clear picture of how the program has gone and what we've been able to accomplish. And you're right, being all in on environmental clean out demolition, averaging about 10,000 per structure, and it looks like about 33 for commercial is really good. Because I've seen cases where it is truly much more than that to raise some of these properties for demolition, and they so graciously need it. Any more questions from the committee at all? No questions? And as DOD have administered and has worked through the program, do you have any recommendations for adjustments or any concerns about the program that maybe DOD have been talking about possibly for changes or to enhance what we've done so far?
I think there's always questions. Little things we've definitely tried to do is during the application process. So a city like Cleveland that comes back repeatedly, we streamline the application process to make it smoother and quicker for them. So not reiterating your strategy, how you're going to take down properties over and over again. Where there's efficiency opportunities, we definitely try to take advantage of those. Other than that, I mean, I really don't think that there are. I mean, I guess I take that back. One other question that I do constantly hear is, what if we raise the cap per structure, or the amount of the cap per round for funding? So those would be the other two questions that are typically asked. And right now, we'll follow your lead on those, but those are the common questions.
Sure. Sure. And I appreciate that. Some of the same questions I received as well. Just wanted to see if there's any other things that you were hearing or the department were hearing or questions that were being asked that maybe we have not heard of that we can possibly consider going down the line. So through this, when you get time in your department, maybe put together some maybe enhancements or some possible updates that we can possibly look at to help move this further along and really enhance this as we move to kind of close this out. So thank you.
I'll be happy to. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. Surratt. Again, this presentation is available online. If anybody would like a copy, that talk with our clerk, Chrissy, and she can provide that. Next, we'll have our fabulous treasurer here in the county, Chris Murray, who will present a tax lien certificate sales update. Mr. Murray, good to see you this morning.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay. As you know, we, in October of 2016, the county embarked on another tax lien sale, and the tax lien sale is part of an overall strategy to address our delinquent properties. So I'm going to talk a little bit about today the financial impact of the sale, plus some things that we are trying to do programmatically to enhance those results and any other options that we may have to address our delinquencies. In October of 2016, we approved and the council approved a contract with TaxEase. TaxEase, after their internal deliberations, they decided to buy a portfolio of 619 parcels, which equates to approximately $6.1 million. The handout that I gave you just gives you a distribution of that particular wire by taxing authority. As you can see, the school districts actually gained the most from tax lien sales, which is quite normal. In this case, 60% went to our school districts, with the highest school districts being receiving funds: Parma, Mayfield, Lakewood, and Cleveland Heights. The county, as just a point of emphasis, the county received approximately 15.6% of the funds at just under $1 million, and the municipalities received a relatively small amount, only 11.7%. The sale has been, from a financial perspective and a procedural perspective, it has been a success. Again, 619 certificates were purchased. Of that, we've had some communication with TaxEase, and just to give you sort of an update status on where the taxpayers are, approximately 538 have been contacted by TaxEase, with already 59 certificates have been redeemed, of which, and there are 78 taxpayers that also have a current payment plan, and in the last 30 days, 18 of those certificates have been redeemed. So we are proceeding as we have expected. TaxEase is being a good partner in terms of reaching out to our taxpayers. As you know, the contract dictates that they are over the first 90 days. They are to make 2 communications to the taxpayer. So based on what I'm seeing so far, that has been proceeding as we had planned. The tax lien sale, and in this tax lien sale in particular, the portfolio that was offered to TaxEase was approximately 2,500 parcels. But TaxEase only purchased 619. So we have a group or balance of parcels, approximately 1,900, which need to be addressed. And so what I am doing now is I'm working with Prosecutor O'Malley. We're going to send out another communication jointly signed by he and I, informing taxpayers that they have X amount of days to come in, make restitution or enter into payment plans, or they can be foreclosed. So that takes care of that. These two projects would take care of the parcels that we currently have that are eligible for action of this point, action of this type. As you know, there are approximately 40,000 delinquencies in any time throughout the year. We have parcels that are either in a BOR situation, they are already in foreclosure. We have parcels that may be held by other tax lien purchasers, so they're in a holding pattern. So right now we are addressing those particular parcels that we can perform some action on. When I was here last to discuss the lien portfolio sale with you, I also talked to you about our special counsel that we are working with. There are two law firms that we're using to address still another set of parcels. And just to remind this council or this committee, we have parcels that are homestead. They have homestead status, parcels that the lien value, the home is upside down, i.e. the value of the lien is greater than 40% of the house. And there's also a group of parcels where the balance is less than $1,000. Those parcels have been referred to our two law firms, and I'm happy to report that even though we only have one law firm is slightly ahead of the other, they have collected to this date $1.8 million, which is reflected in the first half 2016 tax lien sale, which just ended in January. I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Any questions from the committee? Mr. Miller?
Of the $1.8 million that was collected by the two law firms,
Actually, only one, Council.
one.
At this point.
How much of that do they get as their compensation?
It's a tiered schedule, but let's say on average, that's about 22%.
And we have had a good amount of economic activity in Cuyahoga County, a lot of new construction. And my question is, as this new construction comes online, does this create the opportunity for additional tax revenue, or does it get eliminated by tax reduction factors?
I was going to say that I guess the answer to the question depends upon whether or not these are tax exempt properties.
I'm presuming they're not.
If they are not tax exempt properties, then we will see some impact in the 2016 tax collection, which we are collecting now. So to answer your question, yes, in concept, you should see some increase there. As a matter of fact, at this point, and let's say we're 99% completed with the first half tax collection, and we're at 1.2 billion. So that's slightly higher than this first half of 15, which we collected last year. I will say there's going to be two things that we have to take into consideration: tax levies that are approved, as well as what you just mentioned, Councilman Miller, which would be any rise in valuations. But that's every year. Those two factors will weigh in on how much you actually collect.
So now, if Mr. Chairman, Treasurer, am I right that if if valuations rise, that there's a formula for reducing the tax rate so that that we don't actually get more money, but if new properties come online, that's what we benefit from.
That's what we benefit, right? You're okay. You're speaking about the tax reduction factor. Yes, that always plays into what we actually pay. It's a way, as you know, to keep property taxes level for taxpayers. We will see the bulk of our benefit. We'll see in new construction that is, again, non-exempt. Oh, sorry, exempt. Sorry.
And Mr. Chairman, Treasurer, what's the total number of parcels that we have?
551,000 approximately. So about 8% is delinquent.
About 8% is
Right.
delinquent, okay. 550,000.
That's an average any given year. But we tend to stay around 8% in terms of delinquent parcels. That's not counting dollars and penalties and such, but parcels themselves about 8%.
And you said the most recent tax collection was higher than the previous one.
Right. We just finished first half in January 26, and in terms of on-time payments and taxpayers that are paying slightly late and they're subject to the 5% penalty, we're 99% completed with that first half collection, and we're about 1.2 billion, which is about 100 million higher than last year at this time.
So you collected 1.2 billion, and it's 100 million higher. So that's
A little bit.
That's a pretty high percentage.
That's a very high percentage.
It's like almost 7 or 8% higher.
That's a very high percentage. I'm not going to dance just yet, because first half collection tends to be higher than the second half collection, because some taxpayers, believe it or not, pay the full tax in January. So I'm excited, but I'm not dancing just yet.
Okay, but it is encouraging.
Yes, it's very encouraging. Yes.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Murray, so just in your guesstimate, what would you attribute the rise to? What percentage in terms of levies or rise in valuation, you think?
I have to confess, Councilman, I did not check to see what the success rate was on tax levies. In general, the two factors are the same: valuation changes to our good, and also any voted levies that passed.
Okay. I'd be interested to know what percentage that attributes to the rise in the collection this quarter. So once you've gone through your process, I'd like to know what that is.
Okay.
Thank you. Any more questions from the committee, Mr. Gallagher?
No, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Murray, back to you.
Actually, that completes my.
Okay, it completes your report. I am happy to hear that the two firms are working out that we spoke about at last committee. The one being at 1.8 million, and the other is slightly behind. Any thought about using the two firms to collect on the folks who are greater than $1,000, and who outside of those other parameters that you've set, that you and the prosecutor will send out a letter to?
Well, there are tax collection is often more of an art than a science, quite frankly. The categories that we picked were those taxpayers where it would have been a little bit more difficult for the county to initiate action with. So this is, believe it or not, this is actually a more benign way to collect. Homesteaders, while we would never foreclose on a homesteader, we still need to impress upon them that it is important that you pay your obligations. So that was one of the larger groups that we had, and there was another subset that our special collection unit is working on. Those are the postal vacancies. So, and both, and mind you, this is both residential and commercial. One firm has commercial, one firm is concentrating on residential. And so, because I don't have the resources currently to staff a unit that we're just going to go out and run skip trace services on individuals, the firm in this case is a tool that we need in order to supplement our own normal collection activities. So I think what they're being the particular, if I pulled out my my analysis and showed you all the separate subsets of parcels, I think we might have even talked about this before. Yeah. This particular group that I've given to the special collection, they're most appropriate for that for that group. A little less, I don't want to say heavy-handed, but a little less strict.
Sure, okay. There's the firm who collected 1.8 million, that's residential?
That is all residential,
And
correct.
the other is commercial?
Commercials is just getting started, actually.
Just getting started?
Yes.
Okay. How long they've been online? Since
The residential has been working since August.
Okay.
Since August. So
Commercial
that's-
just came on 2017?
Commercial just came on.
Okay, all right.
So,
So maybe we'll have some numbers from the commercial side once our next committee convenes.
yes.
All right, thank you. Mr. Miller?
To create an apples-to-apples comparison and tease out the impact of full-year payments, how does the collections for the first half of 2016 compare with the collections that you had for the first half of 2015 as opposed to the most recent prior collection?
2015 was, we're comparing first half?
I want to compare the first half 2015 with the first half 2016.
2016. First half 2016, as I said, we're right on 1.2 billion. First half of 2015 was very slightly under 1.1 billion.
Okay, good.
So again, that's with the caveat of that 1.2 billion that we collected. 70 million is taxpayers already paying their second half.
But if you're collecting, if you're comparing first half 2016 to first half I'm asking first half 2015 where they would have been
Okay.
doing the same thing.
We're about the same then. If we're isolating 2015 first half current collection to 2016 first half current collection, they're right around the same.
They're the same.
They're right
Okay,
about the same.
So that's not
Right.
showing much increase.
Right. We've got I guess you're right. So to your point, we're seeing the benefit of early collection.
Okay.
All right, any more questions?
A little less dancing in the streets.
A little less dancing.
Okay.
But I'm
We're
optimistic.
still dancing.
I'm optimistic.
Okay.
Anything else, Mr. Murray?
Nothing else, Councilman.
Well, I appreciate your time this morning. I think we've covered pretty much a lot of the questions that myself and the committee had. It's about how's it going with the firms we're working with, what was offered versus what was actually purchased and the dollar amount, and you've given us a copy of all of the communities and school districts and those who and their financial impact, which is good. Thank you. Thank you. One more question.
On this tax lien thing, what's the significance of the several items on here that are highlighted? The city of Cleveland, city of Lakewood, et cetera, et cetera.
Those are just the highest amounts for those particular subsets, Councilman. That's just my own. I like to see where, and what this is showing, these are the cities that actually benefited from the tax lien sales. As you can see, it's hit or miss, but it tends to be inner ring suburbs.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? All right, thank you, Mr.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Murray. Now we will have Mr. Frank Ford, who will come forward and present to us on the Cuyahoga County housing trends. We do have a presentation, will be up on the screen. You also have a copy of the slides in front of you, in front of your workstations, council members.
Thank you, Chairman Hairston, Councilman Miller, and Councilman Gallagher. Thanks for the opportunity to present this research.
Thank you.
This is actually a follow-up to a research report I released last March representing data that's approximately 2000 through December of 2015. In the last couple weeks, I received data to update all of this through December 2016 for mortgage delinquency, mortgage foreclosure, tax delinquency, tax foreclosure, property abandonment, and home sale prices for every geography in the county, including all of the Cleveland neighborhoods. You are the first to see this. It's really new. Nobody else has seen this.
Okay.
I want to say right off the bat that I'm not going to go into all this on the scope of the research, but I do want to mention that all of this is made possible by the incredible data system that we have at Case Western Reserve University, which is referred to as the NEO-CANDO data system. And I have with me today Mike Schramm, who's the research associate at Case, who pretty much has been the one who put this data system together and has been maintaining it. If there's any questions about the origin of the data, he's prepared to answer them.
Welcome, Mike.
Yes. Well, it's not going down. For some reason, the down arrow is not doing what I thought. Oh, maybe it's because that. Oh, I can do the right arrow, sure. So the first thing is looking at mortgage foreclosure, and this is good news. This continues to be good news, that mortgage foreclosures started rising as early as 2000. They peaked in 2007 in Cuyahoga County, and as you can see, they've been coming down. The only thing that's a little bit odd is that in the very last year, they didn't continue to go down. They sort of flatlined, and I'm not sure, I'm not particularly alarmed by that, but it's something that obviously we want to pay attention to. The red line at the bottom represents 1995, sort of a time period before the mortgage foreclosure crisis happened. So we're close to 1.4 times what the normal rate would have been, which is really good news. The second slide here just is looking at the 5 Cuyahoga regions: east inner suburbs, west suburbs, outer suburbs, east side of Cleveland and west side of Cleveland. And as you can see, the east side of Cleveland, when you go back to 2007, was extremely high, and actually historically was where many of the foreclosures have been. That's come down quite a bit. The east inner suburbs is actually at the very end here, slightly at the top, although as you can see, all of the regions of the county have come down. One other thing to look at, though, is in addition to mortgage foreclosure filings would be the delinquencies. And so I have data that was provided to me. This is one of the few items of data that was not provided by Case Western. I got this from the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland. And this is delinquencies going back to 1995. And I've put 2 dotted red lines. The bottom one shows basically what was the delinquency rate 1995 through 1997, approximately 1%. And then you can see that the peak around 2010 was 7%. And then the second dotted line represents where are we at as of December, just about a month ago. And that's 2.63. So the interesting thing here is that although mortgage foreclosure filings are down to 1.4 times what they were in 1995, delinquencies are actually still a little bit higher. So that's a concern. Hopefully that will keep coming down, but that's another thing that I think bears monitoring over time. Then looking at tax delinquency. Now this is alarming, and it really does, something that we really need to pay attention to. The tax delinquency, residential, let me clarify, because this is a housing study. I didn't look at commercial or retail. This is tax delinquency that's residential, has gone up 300% since 2009. And then if you break this down in the next slide, there's really two components to this. There's the fact that the number of parcels going delinquent has been increasing by 155% since 2009. But probably of more concern is that the average delinquency on each parcel is increasing 211%. I do want to say that I noted that the chairman, when you introduced the treasurer, said he was the fabulous treasurer. And I want to say that the group that I'm with, we've been working with Treasurer Murray for a year, and really have been very impressed with his very serious, taking serious all of our concerns, and I think that he's put in place the things which should help alleviate this, but as he said, he's not dancing in the streets yet, so we'll have to see, but we've been very pleased with the new procedures that he's implemented. The last thing on tax foreclosure, tax delinquency and foreclosure I want to look at, and this is a little bit complex, but let me just say that the three lines represent three types of tax foreclosure. One is the standard traditional judicial tax foreclosure initiated by the prosecutor. That's the red line. The blue line is the Board of Revision tax foreclosure on abandoned property, also initiated by the prosecutor. The green line is private foreclosures initiated by the tax lien buyers, recently Aon, Woods Cove, and now Taxis, although there are no Taxis foreclosures yet. The things that are interesting about this is that the housing advocates asked the prosecutor to begin becoming more aggressive back in 07, 08, 09 to start doing more Board of Revision foreclosures, because those are the abandoned properties that then will be steered to the county land bank, where you can have a beneficial outcome. So the fact that that blue line is increasing over time is a really good indication. That's something we want. What happened, though, was that the prosecutor, in order to increase that capacity, backed off somewhat on the judicial tax foreclosures, the red line, because they didn't have the additional resources. This was brought to their attention over the last 2 years, and as you can see now, we have an increase in the red line as well, which I think is important. And we have a corresponding decrease with the tax lien foreclosures, also something I think that's positive. This is not research, but I want to relay to you anecdotally comments that I've heard from Legal Aid Society of Cleveland. They tend to be the one who represent the people being foreclosed on by tax lien buyers and the county prosecutor. And what they've told us is that when their clients are being foreclosed on by the county prosecutor, a much more beneficial outcome takes place. They're more likely to achieve some kind of workout, being able to stay in their home, compared to when they're foreclosed on by Aon or Woods Cove. So that decrease in the green line, from my perspective, and for many housing advocates, is a good thing. But it does suggest that that red line, we need to keep bolstering that prosecutor capacity. And I think that's what we heard Treasurer Murray say just a few minutes ago. Then moving on to property abandonment. The postal data, which is used by Case Western Reserve University for 1 to 3 family residential structures, you can see there's been a gradual decline. This is also good news. It peaked at 23,000, almost 24,000 back in 2010, and it's come down now to about 15,000. If that keeps going, I think we want that to keep going down. And the reason that's going down, I think, are two reasons. One is that the foreclosures on the front end, the mortgage foreclosures, have come down greatly. So the precipitating event that caused a lot of abandonment is down. And the other thing is that the recent efforts of the county land bank to remove blighted structures also, because once the structure's removed, it's now a vacant lot and it's not counted here. Now, although the good news is it's coming down, but note, though, that where is the vacancy? And as you can see from this, the east side of Cleveland has the largest share of vacancy, second, the east inner suburbs, and the two of those together pretty much dwarf the remainder of the county. So you've got the outer suburbs, Cleveland West Side, and inner west suburbs have far less abandonment or vacancy and abandonment. But now taking this one step further, if you look at the blue bar on the left, well, that's that total 15,000 vacancy. But not every vacant structure needs to be removed by demolition. The red section of the second bar are the properties that have been designated as likely demolition candidates. Now, that comes from a couple sources. The one is that the organization I work for, Western Reserve Land Conservancy, a year ago did a door-to-door survey of every property in the city of Cleveland and rated them A, B, C, D, or F. D and F being essentially a proxy for likely demolition, and there were 7,200 of those. Conversely, though, that would suggest that the balance, the 8,000 or so that are not designated as such, are the ones most likely to be feasible for some kind of renovation. Then the three bars on the right that are crosshatched represent how is that 7,200, what is it composed of? As you can see, the city of Cleveland's portion of the Cuyahoga County likely demolition candidates is pretty extreme. It's 5,200. East Cleveland is about 1,000. The number, so both of those come from a survey, door-to-door survey. We did the East Cleveland survey 2 years ago. So, you know, given understanding that that's 2 years old for East Cleveland, then the remainder of the suburbs, that is an estimate based on the number of applications that have come into the county's demolition from all the other suburbs. And then I bumped it up some just to be cautious. This is taking a look then at, so what is the impact of blight and how it affects market recovery, housing market recovery? I thought it was interesting to show east side of Cleveland and west side of Cleveland. If you look back in 2005, their median home sale price was very close, not that significantly different. 89,000 for the west side, 80,000 for Cleveland east side. But then what has happened is that we have foreclosure filings causing abandonment, excuse me. And I just cited the 2007 level that the west side was 1,800 foreclosures, but the Cleveland east side was 4,300, significantly greater. Then when you get to the survey that we did last year in 2015, the properties rated D and F that were likely demo, look at the difference there. The Cleveland west side, only 568, Cleveland east side, 4,600. And then when you look over to the most recent median home sale price as of December, just a month or two ago, and you can see this dramatic difference. So the Cleveland west side is recovering fairly well at 60,000. Cleveland east side, with all of that blight, is still only 18,000. The sales, the property sales research I did, just to briefly, it's 17 years of data from 2000 to 2016. It's approximately 90 geographies, 57 suburbs, 34 neighborhoods, and this is only arm's length sales. This is a methodology that Case Western Reserve has developed. It's been used by the Federal Reserve Bank in research they've done. The idea is to get a sense of what's going on with the housing market by separating out the transfers of property from bank to bank, bank to HUD, bank to Fannie Mae, separating out just the sales at share of sales, separating out the $0 gifts and transfers between business partners and relatives, and it takes out the sales of vacant lots. So this should be, ideally, the transfers that represent what a willing buyer would pay to a seller in a traditional arm's length sale. This is the global look at Cuyahoga County. The vertical line to your left represents the approximate peak. Where did home sale prices peak? Around 2005. And as you can see, the trend is generally the same for all of the sub-geographies. Goes down, hits bottom, comes back up. The difference is to what degree is it coming back up? And in the red font with the percent that's in parens, that is the percent of housing market recovery back to the 2005 peak. So you can see the outer suburbs is recovering quite nicely, 91%. The west inner suburbs, very close to their peak, 90%. Cuyahoga generally is the dotted red line, which is 81%. And then you start seeing that where things are impacted by higher rates of vacancy and abandonment, till you get down to the city of Cleveland is median at 30,000, only recovered 35%, and east side of Cleveland is at 18,000, recovering only 23%. But again, keep in mind, where is the vast majority of the blight undermining the housing market? It's on the east side of Cleveland. This is a similar chart. This just shows 10 east side inner suburbs. Now, by the way, I could do this chart for any of the 50 plus suburbs. This just happened to be, let's call it somewhat arbitrary, but I'd be very happy to produce this chart in some other way for you if you'd like to see it. The eastern suburbs are, again, Shaker Heights is doing quite well. They recovered 89% of their peak. University Heights, 77%. And then as you can see, as you work your way down, when you get to Garfield, Maple Heights, Warrensville, where there's higher percents of vacancy, and certainly when you get to East Cleveland, you're really talking about a suburb which is essentially like one of the east side neighborhoods of Cleveland at only recovering 15% of its value. This is looking at the 9 east side neighborhoods. This is probably the most dramatic chart in this presentation, because when you just look at these 9 east side Cleveland neighborhoods and see this dramatic drop in 06 to 07. But the good news is at least we've hit bottom. That's the good news, and things are generally coming back up. There may be a few exceptions. I think there's that one Fairfax, which is the light green bar that goes down in the last year or so. I think the thing to keep in mind is that notice it was also the one that went up in 2012 and 13. What happened with Fairfax is that the city of Cleveland changed the neighborhood boundaries in 2012, and they bumped it up 2 blocks north to include Euclid and Chester, which captured some very expensive condominiums. So it went up. It's coming down is actually, it's probably a function of the fact that those homes sold and now things have slowed. That's my guess. But I could look at that more carefully if you need me to. I could do some more forensics on that. So the impact of vacancy and blight on African American communities, I think, is worth noting. There's approximately 10,000 vacant structures in just the city. It's 15,000 in the county, 10,000 in the city. And when you're just looking at vacant structures, about 65% are in neighborhoods with 80% or greater African American population. But then when you look at, of those, the ones that are most blighted, the structures that are most likely requiring demolition at 5,200, then you've got 74%, an even higher percent of those structures are in neighborhoods with 80% or greater African American population. So it's worth noting that the African American communities in Cuyahoga are certainly suffering a disproportionate impact from the blight. This may be a little too much to put into one slide, so let me try to. This is taking the survey data that we did a year ago, looking at every housing in the city of Cleveland. And what I did is I looked at the number of likely demolition candidates in these neighborhoods and then compared that to the total number of residential structures. And then the middle shaded column is the percent, with that concentration of likely demolition. And the top grouping is the east side neighborhoods that had 9% or more likely demolition. The bottom group are the west side neighborhoods with 3% or less likely demolition. And then what I did is I just matched that up with the most recent median home sale price. And while perhaps this isn't the most scientific way to do this, I think it's pretty clear that the neighborhoods with the higher concentration of blight tend to be the neighborhoods with the lowest median home sale price. And conversely, the neighborhoods with the lowest concentration of blight tend to be the neighborhoods with the highest median home sale price. Now, I want to close with just an observation and some thoughts. The group that I work with noted that in the County Planning Commission's 2016 housing study, there was a suggestion that perhaps the money that was talked about earlier, the demolition fund for housing, perhaps some of it could be diverted to rehab. And this poses an interesting question, and I took a look at what would be the impact of such a shift. And I was aided in this there's a study done by Nigel Griswold from Michigan, who looked at what was the impact of 1,081 rehabs. What was that impact on surrounding property values between 2009 and 2015? And I've cited his study there. And this is a map that he produced. He divided Cuyahoga County into 4 color-coded geographies. And what I did is I hand drew what people often refer to as the Cleveland Crescent. It's generally the east side of Cleveland, the southeast and the northeast, with some of the east inner suburbs, certainly, and it does include East Cleveland. And so the pink is his most distressed area in the county. Then he has the three others, which I guess are the gray, there's a light blue, and there's sort of a, I'm not sure what it would be, like an orange or beige. But what he found was interesting. He found that in that most distressed area, where most of the blight is, the impact from rehab was less than 1%. It was only 0.46%. It did range from 6 to 11% in all other areas. So in general, this study does show if you do rehab, it does improve value, but not necessarily in the areas that have the most blight. And the last slide I'm going to close with is looking at this more specifically. On the left box, I've got the scope of the problem. Again, there's the 15,000 vacant homes. There's the 7,000 roughly homes of that are probably most blighted and likely demolition. There's the balance of those 8,000 that are more feasible for rehab. If you look at the box on the right, and let me disclose right off the bat that these numbers are older. They're not updated to Director Surratt's most recent research you just saw. So this is as of the fall of 2016. There was approximately $75 million available for demolition of housing. That represented at that time about $30 million remaining from the county demolition fund, about $30 million coming from the new hardest hit fund, round one, another estimated up to $10 million coming from round two of that fund, and another $4 million left over from an earlier hardest hit fund, totaling roughly, I think it's actually 74 point something million, but roughly 75 million. The proposal that's been talked about in some circles is, well, what if we diverted 25 million of these funds, whether that be county demo fund, the hardest hit, and we did 1,000 rehabs. So instead of a $10,000 subsidy for demolition, you'd have a $25,000 subsidy for rehab. If you did that, and if you took the 75 million we started with had last fall, you would be left with 50 million left for demolition. And then if you look at the 7,200 most blighted homes, with that 50 million, you could do about 5,000 of them. What's the bottom line? It means you end up leaving standing about 2,200 of the most blighted homes if you diverted money to rehab, because rehabs are not going to be 10,000 per house. They're not likely to be. So, and where are those blighted homes likely to be? Was, I've demonstrated earlier, they're going to be in the predominantly African-American neighborhoods. So if it sounds like I'm leading to an opinion, my opinion would be that I suggest the county be very careful about not siphoning off the existing demo funds for rehab. If we want money for rehab, we should all join together and raise new money for that. So I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Ford.
Go to the Board of Control. Thanks very much.
Oh, feel free to call me.
Presentation.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah.
Right, yeah, we are bumping up against Board of Control.
That's fine.
So members from the administration leaving and council members also. Mr. Gallagher.
You made an interesting comment, new money.
New money.
And I'm going to be very honest with this. This was a program that was thrust upon us in a political atmosphere by a previous administration. And quite honestly, and I've talked to Ed himself, he is running for governor and looking for votes. I'm not saying it's a bad program, but now you're expanding a $50 million program, or suggesting that was dedicated to demolition. And we heard right away about the rehab. We heard right away. But of course, we heard right away from people that had no interest in putting their own money into it, even though they have money. So this has been on the broad shoulders of Cuyahoga County. And my mission here is to be fair and equitable throughout the county. Take the money where we need to put the money, and clearly the money needs to be put into some of these neighborhoods to take care of a problem. So now you're expanding the discussion on removing the problem and then going into rehab. I'm not against rehab. It's more expensive.
It is.
And it's more expensive, as we discuss it,
Right.
for Cuyahoga County. And I don't hear any give from any of these communities that are being helped. Some can't help themselves, and I get that. Quite honestly, when this was initially formulated, my suggestion was keep the 50 million together, go into a neighborhood in East Cleveland, you know, if, for lack of a better word, you know, carpet bomb it, move it out, rebuild it, and then we'll see if we can't take a huge area and turn it into something that everybody wants to be part of. I think this is pieces, parts. I think we took the wrong avenue. I understand it's helping here and there. The map, the crescent shows me that here and there, we're just like hitting little areas when we have a huge problem. I thought this needed to be discussed further, but we were in a political mode to move forward. I would not be in favor of moving this program beyond the $50 million until, quite honestly, and again, this is my personal perspective, we have our own personal bond that's going to attach itself to every community in Cuyahoga County, and that's the senior population in Cuyahoga County. The boomers are ready to boom, and they started, and I'm one of them. So a little bit of selfishness there to myself.
Yeah.
But I think we need to be careful and really plan these things out a little bit easier, or a little bit more in advance than just making suggestions on rehab. I get it, but we don't have the disposable income. We're going into our budget and everybody's going to see it. We came out of a 2-year budget last time with a 10% cut across the board. In my opinion, we're close to that. And we haven't really discussed or implemented any sort of help for our senior population. So my frustration is, and you probably can sense it, is that, sure, there are needs everywhere. But I think we made a huge mistake in this. I thought we should have just gone in and just taken out a huge portion of East Cleveland. And my bet is that 50 million would have reaped us 2, 3, 4 times as much in return on the investment. What we're doing now doesn't look like we're getting that return on investment. We're only exposing the fact that it's really not helping in a broad brush neighborhoods. It's taking out a cancer cell here, but it's metastasized throughout the entire community. So that was my thought there, and I kept my powder dry. And I think these numbers are proving what I thought was going to happen. It's a huge $250 million problem that we personally threw $50 million at. And until some of these communities with money, and there are communities with money, start deciding that they have a problem and that they should put skin in this game, then I think we should take a step back and take care of our seniors that need the money to live, the people that built this community. The reason that we are here where we are today, the reason Cleveland's moving forward, the reason the outer ring suburbs are as successful as they are based entirely on the vision and hard work of the seniors in this community. And we as elected officials, in my opinion, and I include myself in that, are asleep at the wheel and have been, and now's the time to wake up. Other counties do it. Franklin in particular makes us look horrible. So great program thrust upon us. I think we rushed it. I think we need to put the brakes on this thought of rehab, because we're taking more money, but does it do anything? Do you, and I have to go too, but do you have any thought on what I thought initially we should do and keep that money together and literally do a Dresden of an area and redo it?
Councilman, the only thing that I just realized that I don't think I've pointed out explicitly, that maybe I should leave this thought, that the 75 million that was the conglomeration of the various sources, including the balance of what was left with the county demolition fund as of 4 or 5 months ago. As it turns out, that 75 million is just about exactly the amount that would remove the 7,200 most blighted structures. So we're actually at an extraordinary point in time where, if we stayed the course and didn't push money off to rehab, kept it intact for the purpose it was originally intended, in the next 3 or 4 years, we could actually, obviously we can't remove all blight because there'll be some new properties coming on, but
Sure, and that has to be factored in.
Right, but we have a chance to actually give the housing market throughout the county a real boost here by removing the 7,200 most blighted structures with the money that's still left.
And I factored, it was about 52 million if you go at 10,000. So that, it probably kicks up to the close to 70 million to do it. And that I understand. But I will guarantee you, and I mark my words, that people will be back in this room again with their hands extended outward, looking for more because we were willing, or at least somebody was willing to throw this money out there. But you know
Right.
where we'd be if the communities, and again, I understand many of these communities cannot afford, even in the outer ring, couldn't afford to do what we're affording to them in removal of these properties. And I do understand the impact and the appreciativeness that these folks, they're happy about it. But nobody's putting any more money in. And I know they haven't. I know they haven't. And they won't do it because they don't have to do it. And I don't blame them. You know, this has to be a global attack. When we're done with this, I agree, but there's going to be more there and there's going to be a new issue. And I see the issue clearly being rehab. We can't afford it. I can't afford to rehab neighborhoods, again, when I have seniors eating cat food. And that's not something that isn't happening. That is something that I know is happening. And that's a cancer that's all over Cuyahoga County, and I feel ashamed that I've been sitting here for 7 years and haven't done anything about it. We're trying, but I think this one should be considered mission accomplished until everybody gets together and decides to be partners in this. I see it as Cuyahoga County, quite honestly, moving forward. And I know there's going to be some more money coming in from these banks especially, and I don't even want to get into that, how no one went to jail on this is beyond, beyond anything that I could possibly try to understand.
Can I leave you with an optimistic last word? Here's something that if we did remove over the next 3 or 4 years these 7,200 most blighted structures, my belief is that that would enable the housing market to begin to come back up. Because the blight, from the research I've done, it would suggest that the blight is what's holding the market down. As the housing market comes back up, people may not need to come back here in 4 or 5 years saying we want grant money for rehab, because as the prices come up, it makes rehab more feasible. That's my thought about this. Well,
They will.
They may.
I mean, you know, when you're handing out candy, and
Right,
you've never
everybody
had
wants
candy
some. Yeah.
before, you go
Right.
back to where they handed out candy.
Yeah.
And you know, we're the candy man. And I'm sick of it. I've seen enough of it. I think we've done our share. I think we have other things that we have to tackle. And again, I'm not saying this was a bad thing. I'm just saying just the way it was rolled out was bad. The end result is fantastic. I just would have loved to have seen a study on taking out an entire section of East Cleveland. And I'm telling you, that University Circle area would have gone east.
I would have. I believe you're right.
You know,
It's right there next to it.
I just saw it as
Yeah.
but I get it, you know, I get what we were doing, and I'm somewhat proud of that people stayed on cue and got rid of those homes and knocked them down. But I just, any expansion, I think we have to be very careful.
Thank you.
And I agree with Mr. Gallagher on some of his points that if we stay our course and not divert that, you and I've had this discussion. I don't believe the right thing to do is to take any of this funding and move it towards rehabilitation. I think we need to stay the course. We need to work in conjunction with all the other dollars that we received and wipe out the structures that are remaining so we can boost our communities, given that leg up. And I think even the University Circle and part of East Cleveland will get there. It may not be as fast as it would have been if we would have taken a larger amount of and put it strictly for East Cleveland or did the carpet bomb, as my colleague would say. But I think we get there. I think the end result, as your study shows and other folks have talked about, that if we stay the course, again, I say that, that we will reach our end goal is to really allow for the housing market in our communities to rebound, because it is. When folks come into the neighborhood and they see the blight, they see the vacant structures, they pull out. They don't want to buy. They turn the corner and go down the street and look for an area that don't have as much blight in the community. So it will have an impact. It does have an impact, and I think long range in that it will prove to be effective, and that we did the right thing.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thanks.
Well, Mr. Ford, so we will get this presentation to the other members of the committee who were not able to be here today. And so what we will probably do, work with Khalil and council staff to maybe draft some questions sent to
Okay.
you and that committee
Good.
members may have.
Be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, any miscellaneous business? I don't believe so. Any other public comment?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you.